Well, my name is Katie, and I do work at Gateway, but I'm also, there goes my phone. I'm also a mother to a son with a disability. So when they asked me to join this, I'm coming to you from a holistic way in a sense, because this is something that is just new to us. So we're learning through the process of my son's diagnosis and all of the complexities that come with it, and doing things like hiring for respite care or community aid support or overnights. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. What is my industry? I guess specifically it's home supports for my son. So like I had mentioned, respite, community aid support, and that. So what is respite? It's a special name for a short-term break for caregivers. When you look after someone who's sick or disabled, it's set up for me to take a break from time to time to look after my own needs. And that's like what people take for granted, like going to see a movie or grocery shopping, or maybe I could go swimming or take an exercise class. And sometimes it's anywhere between 2 and 4 hours typically. It allows me to get the things done that I can't normally do. And that's where respite comes in to help families like mine. And again, that's in my home. And then we look for community aid support. So community aid support would be going out into the community with him and engaging in activities that are available to him. So he loves swimming. He doesn't know how to swim, but somebody who's confident in being able to take him into a pool. He's a very active boy, and Amy knows him well and sees, but he can run for hours and hours and hours. So when we look for somebody with community aid support, we look for them who are engaging in outside activities like soccer, or getting him to ride his bike, or things that will help him calm down a bit. And I don't want to use the word calm down. What's the word, Jasmine, that I'm looking
Regulate?
for? Regulate. But too much activity will be the opposite. So somebody that just has something that they have in mind, like we're going to go to the park for 2 hours, and he knows how long the 2 hours is. But instead of just letting him run through the park, engage him in the park and play games in the park, or take him to the mall and get him to do some groceries, like not grocery shopping, but like Mother's Day is coming up. It would be so nice if somebody could engage him on, hey, we have a budget and this is how much that mom's given us, and so we're going to go buy her a present. Or we're going to learn how to, we're going to learn today how to do geocaching. I mean, that would be amazing for him, because it's like treasure hunting for little kids. So community aid support is typically anything that's outside of the home that requires you to go to a location and try something new. And then I have 24-hour care. And sometimes that would, working full time, and then also having my son can be really overwhelming sometimes for a parent like me. So sometimes we hire somebody for 24 hours in the sense where they come and they sleep in my house overnight. They engage him, they follow the same routines, they do the same things that are set up for him, and they're willing to do that. And so, and they're willing to kind of take over that role to allow me to go and maybe just sleep in. I can't remember the last time I slept in was, but it would be amazing to hire somebody who I was confident in, who would take my son and be willing to follow the same routines and patterns that we have to ensure that he has a successful 24 hours. It's hard for him to be without me. So having somebody that engages him in activities or does just different things like that would be quite wonderful. So what does it look like at my organization is one of the questions that I was asked. And we don't really have an organization, we have a house. And so my son is very, very busy, but he's also very routine based. So we follow charts and encourage a lot of exercising to help him regulate himself and help with any behaviors that might arise due to his lack of activity. So when you come in to look at doing some respite care or community aid support or whatever, it's really important for you to understand who that child is and what part of what are different ways that you can benefit him and his growth and his development because he is so young. So what do I look for in candidates? Somebody who understands his diagnosis, I think, is really important. So specifically, my son has autism, ADHD, and fine motor tics. So having an understanding of the complexities that come with that is important. Jasmine, you have a question?
Yeah. So do you specifically seek out these respite workers, or you go to an organization that does that?
Oh, so I was going to get to that.
Oh,
But
sorry.
no, it's okay, but I will get to that. So also for candidates, it's somebody who has a lot of energy and can generate games outside of the house that will get them off his iPad or get them off the computer or get them off any sort of other electronics that are there. But the also thing I look for is somebody who has a flexible schedule and can work when they need him. Oftentimes I get people telling me when they can do it, and that doesn't necessarily work for us. So, you know, somebody said, well, I can come from 5 to 6:30, but because we're so routine based, that is his dinner time. So we can't, that doesn't really work for us. So somebody who's flexible in their time and lets me know ahead of time what their schedule might look like will help me be able to arrange my life too. So one of the things that we look for, and Jasmine asked, is where do I find people? Well, we have parent groups that are on Facebook and such that have already hired a respite worker typically, and they are referring them. We haven't yet had to put out an ad because there are so many out there who are looking for work. So, Jasmine, what was the other question you asked? Sorry.
Just kind of how do you get people? So do you identify that you have this need and you seek out a respite worker, or do you have kind of funding that goes with your son that you get to kind of seek out whoever you want, or do you have to go with an agency, or how does that work?
So I manage our own family, so it's family managed, and we get funding through a program called FSCD. And FSCD actually provides me with funding that allows me to pay for respite care, community aid support, or the overnight support, and they have a set amount. So respite support and community aid support is the starting wage of $17.50. So depending on the qualifications that come with that, I might go, oh, this person has come to me and says, hey, these are all the things that I would like to do. I've learned this, I've volunteered in this area before, and I would love to take him here. And I go, you know what, I can top up that wage. So the more support that that person has, it allows me to top up that wage. For 24-hour support, I get to pay in the upwards of $232 a day for 24-hour support. So keeping in mind, I get 10 to 12 days like that a year. But in that time frame, you know what, he's asleep for 10 hours of that time. And, you know, he might be in school during that time. So there's little small windows for that, but it's something that we've identified, and I get funding through that. Now, as far as when I'm looking for someone like that, because the parent groups are so resourceful, I would say, oh, I'm looking for somebody. I just, like, example today, I need to get groceries. And I typically can't take my son into the store because of COVID, because of different areas, and he likes to run and touch everything. And so I get a little bit worried about taking him in the stores. So typically I would have somebody come to my house and allow me to do that. But not all the time the same respite worker. So typically today, I would have loved a respite worker today, but I don't have one. So I was going to, as soon as I'm done him, I have to go pick him up. And I know that my grocery experience with him is going to take me about 2.5 hours. And that is really difficult. And I could probably get it done in 40 minutes if I was alone. right? So when I'm looking for that sort of care, I do put it out to the world that, hey, I'm looking to see if somebody could look at watching my son. I typically do it through the parent groups. But there are other ways that I can do it. So there's agency support. So if you were looking at going to work for an agency, one of them I can think of, I think, is Adaptabilities, or there's different agencies that hire people that you would be doing the same thing, and you would get agency support dollars as opposed to FSC dollars. So I'm sorry I got these questions a little bit late today, but I'm trying my best. But is there any other questions that you might have in response to looking for work through respite services before I go on?
If I can just make a sales pitch to Window Inclusive Community Service out of Hewlett Park. They were a support agency that supported me for a few years, and they are just incredible. So if you are looking for work in the community, a wonderful support agency that believes in independence, lives and breathes independence for people with disabilities,
Yeah.
with inclusive community service is amazing.
Yeah, well, thanks, Amy. I think because it's still so new to me, I'm sharing with you like a new parent who comes into something like this and what they're looking for. Sometimes we don't even know what we're looking for. And sometimes we hope to stay away from the agency care because there's a lot more for a parent to do, as far as way more paperwork and way more other things. It would be so nice to do something holistic. It would be so nice to have somebody that we know, somebody that really could use some hours and really work with my son because they know them on a personal level. Agency support we've stayed away from typically because the turnover is really, really high. And so my son forms attachments to people really quickly. And the reason why we decided to go with family managed services, and that means I hire and I do that for myself, is because we know when somebody leaves his care now, in the couple of years that we've been doing this, how much it affects him. So that's why we've stayed away from agencies at this point, maybe. But there will come a time when we don't have a choice, because great respite workers disappear really quickly. And what I mean that for is that if you're a great respite worker and somebody can offer you, like I have a limited amount of hours a month. I get 20 hours a month. I think that's what I get. Yeah, 20 hours a month for respite care, and then so many hours for community support care, and then I get 10 or 12 overnights, and I have to stretch that out for a year, right? So there'll be a lot of families in my situation, but then there'll be families that get 100 hours a month and all these different things. And because you're amazing at what you do, you're going to go with something that's more stable. So it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for something that's part-time, you would love a family like ours would be amazing. But if you're looking for something that's more long, gives you more hours in such a day, that would probably be something that you'd be more fit for. But we always look for great workers, and great workers learn so much from my son, and then great workers end up going to somebody that can give them 10 times more hours than I can. So on resumes, one of the questions I was asked is, how can the candidate ensure that their resume stands out? Well, I'll tell you, along with references, I would love to see someone who can take me through a day with a child or an adult that they've worked with and the new activities they've planned. What are your favorite activities? Because it's important for me to see if they align. And if it's something that I think my son would also love doing because he's open to trying new things, to me, that would be essentially a great fit. So I'd love to see some of the things that you've done. It helps me determine that here's somebody who's engaged and who's willing to do the community aid support or willing to do the respite support, who I know in my heart that that's what my son needs. So there's that. And then by sharing why you decided to work in this field, helps me as a parent feel like you have a real interest and an investment in being part of our family, because essentially that's what you become. So when you choose to do respite work or community aid support, you become part of our family. And that's a great deal for us. And we will always advocate to ensure that you have a safe work environment and a happy work environment. It's really a lot more laid back, but you essentially would become part of our family. So it's important for me to understand why it was something that you wanted to do. And then how can people take to the industry? How is respite care or community aid support something that you're interested in doing? I would tell you to volunteer. Take as many online classes as you can, or get involved in community groups of children or adults with special needs to hear what's happening, to understand what their parents are going through, to empathize and to see how you could be a part of that. Be open to taking in knowledge to forward and create an environment that would set you apart from somebody who just wants to come and sit with my child. I think it's essential for you to show how you stand out and why. Because we can go and we have hired a lot of people who opened up their phones as soon as I left. And I don't want to discourage anybody from communicating, and if there's an emergency or whichever, but I didn't do well for my son. And my son figured it out right away. And so we want it to be an engaging, great environment for everybody that's here. So yeah, I hope that kind of helped. We are new parents that are in this sector. So everything that I'm talking about today, you know what, I'm learning too. And so as we go through it, it's a wonderful thing. I hope that we can have a respite worker who can work with our family for years, because how rewarding would it be to like help my son a lot of the things that I can't do because I do work from home and I do have a house to maintain. But for somebody who might be able to teach him how to ride his bike and then take him to that next level, or somebody who might help him get involved with a sports team and encourage him and walk him through that process. And you get to see all those milestones that maybe I can't or get to be a part of, but we're going to have this for a very long time, and it would be nice for somebody who wants to be a part of that for a very long time with us. So do you have any questions about it? I would love to answer what I can, but at this point, like you guys, we're a new family and we're figuring it out too.
Does anybody have any questions?
Hello, Cheryl, welcome.
Oh, hello everyone. Sorry, I joined a little bit late. I don't have any questions, but it's great for me to participate this session and then to meet with new people. And maybe I can just have a brief intro about myself and what I do. And I'm quite new to this field. I'm the employer engagement coordinator for Autism Contact Program at Northwest College, which is a federal funded new program, 6-month program that aims at help autistic youth between the age of 18 and 30, help them to gain employability skills at a entry-level position in digital economy. So basically my job is to help our participants to find 2 months work experience. So to connect with as many as employers as possible and to host our students' work, participants' work experience. So just trying to, participate meetings and events and meet people.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I love to connect with everyone. I think I already sent LinkedIn connections. Oh, I don't your name and it's Shows Gateway Association.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I know Jasmine and you.
Yeah.
And Amy.
Katie.
Katie, okay.
Yeah.
There, so sorry about that.
Yeah, I would like to know maybe a bit more about what you do and, just kind of build these connections.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'd be happy to talk about that with you after this. That's great.
Sure, sure.
Yules, are you looking at respite care or looking into getting into something like that?
I simply joined. I'm on the same page. We can always learn as much as we can. I actually started out with community support, and then later on, I did respite for a family member because I volunteered at a organization called Jesus Loves You Society, and there was a family that was allowed to participate because they had a son who was autistic, and they knew how difficult it was. And although it was I guess a community for single women with low income, they still allowed the family to come because with her husband, simply because everyone was on the same page. Everyone loved the family and wanted to support this family. So I eventually, after volunteering for 2 years, every Thursday, they came up to me, same idea that they wanted me to be a respite for their son, and I offered to do it for a couple months because there was a basketball uh, course that he was very interested in, but they weren't able to take him. So I offered, and it was a great experience. But like you said, when that disappears, it would be very hard for him. Luckily, he still sees me every Thursday.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I can see your dilemma where hiring a respite, someone who really cares and will stay in the long run, it is so difficult.
Well, we know that everything changes. We know that. But when we hire somebody, we typically want to hire for the long term. We know that we get so what happens is my son gets a contract annually. And in that contract is those time allocations. So typically what I like to do is I like to talk to the individual that I have and work with them on, okay, let's look at schedules. You want to do every Thursday? You want to do, on weekends? What does your weekends look like? How does Monday nights look? And then we set them in stone. So ideally, each year I get that contract, I would like to have it laid out because then I know when just a sec, Amy. But I know that when I can start a dance class or I can go get groceries on those particular days or whichever. So yeah, we always look for the long term, at least a year. And then when we get the contract renewed, which we typically will every year, but then we can keep that consistency. So if there was something else that you wanted to do or fill in that spot, you could do that. But we want you to know that, hey, we're hiring for the long term. We'd love to see you grow with our son. Yes, Amy?
I just wanted to add on to what you were saying about the long term and what kind of impact that has on people, because I had respite when I was very young. A woman named Deb came into my life from the GRIT program, actually. But she ended up staying with us. My parents did FMS support for me. And she's still a part of my life, not as a caregiver, but just as a friend. And it's been 24 years now. And when she couldn't do it, her husband Dennis took over and gave us that support that gave me that support that I needed. So there's a lot of benefit to somebody that can be part of it for the long haul.
For sure, Amy. Thanks for sharing that. For those of you that know my son, he does form attachments and he's very loving and he's out there. And losing people is not just like, oh, he feels it. He misses them immensely. So we do look for that. So when somebody comes on and I have a year contract, we definitely try to set up some sort of consistency with them.
Do you find that you have a lot of turnover, even though you have a year contract, that you're able to say, I can give you this many hours, I want you to stay on? Do you find it's more incentive or?
Well, I think that it could be looked at as an incentive, but at the same token, I get it. We're in it's all based on economy right now. But when you have a great respite worker, so I have a great respite worker. And there was a mom who had a defined need for one, and her son loved snowboarding. And I knew that my respite worker loved snowboarding. And so his mom, like we as parents would pay for all the entry fees to something like that. And you would be their support going through that process. So she said to me, I said, I have a respite worker and she doesn't work on those specific days when I need her. And she goes, nobody shares their respite worker. And that's why, because you risk the fear of losing them, right? Because some other parents get way more hours than what I get. So I had to have this conversation with my respite worker. And I said, listen, I know she has more hours. I know they do cooler things, but would you still be willing to, would you think it would change? Because if it is, we have to find somebody. And thank gosh, but she was like, nope, him first and then them next or whatever. But that individual can't believe how fantastic she is. So we risk that all the time, Jasmine. When you have somebody that's incredible and is able to work with your kids, whether or not it's high emotions are running or needs changing a food bag or something, whatever they might be, because I have a ton of families who are in that situation. There's another family who's ready to steal them because it's hard to come across people who love what they do. And when you do, your world opens up to so many opportunities. So yeah, sometimes we do, Jasmine. We've lost 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it can be pretty high.
It is. And only because it's, COVID really took a hit on a lot of us parents. So a lot of people had to go out of this field and take on different types of jobs. So right now, there are tons of parents who are in my situation. Well, I'm lucky right now, so I shouldn't say that. But there are parents who are looking for a really good respite worker right now.
And so I know you kind of said you're part of Facebook groups and you have that kind of world, and you're also in the disability realm, so you have a really good understanding of it already. Where do you say, or where do you send parents to kind of look for good respite workers? Or where can, if I'm a really good respite worker and I want to put my money where my mouth is, how do I come and convey that to you or to whoever?
Well, that's why social media is so fantastic. So there's actually a respite worker. I'm going to pull it up for you. There is families looking for respite on Facebook. And so it's a great opportunity. There's 971 members. And that is across Alberta in a sense, but there's Infinite Resources put out a thing about when hiring a respite worker that I can share with you guys. And it's about a guide to safety and journeys. It's based on autism, but all of these people come together and they talk about regulations or what's happening or what they're looking for specifically. So we use that page quite a bit. It's like the information highway for anybody who's looking for respite, and somebody's able to go on there and put specifically with it, here's an example, looking for caregiver services for my 10-year-old nonverbal autistic son. With speech therapy coming to an end, primary responsibilities would be to work with transition information and assist him daily. They talk about all the activities and stuff. There's even a picture of the child that's there. And then they have some of the things that they require. You must have a valid driver's license, and you may require to take them to outdoor activities, and then they leave their phone number. And some of them will have like a little write-up about their child and what it is. So there are tons of different people. I can honestly tell you, and there's probably 30 people right now looking for respite workers.
And when you guys do seek out those respite workers, what are the main criteria that you're looking for? Like what stands out to you on a resume? Can it be anybody, or is it somebody that kind of conveys passion? Or is there some training that you're like, oh, I really need them to have this?
Well, everybody who comes in is going to get training in home, right? Specifically about what that looks like. When you come into it, you don't have to, if somebody comes in and you're a past behavior specialist, obviously you're going to have those qualifications, but the majority of the time we're hiring people that are just passionate about working with kids or families. And when there's young children and then there's adult children, but you already have said, this is something that I want to do. This is something how I can add to, and here's some ideas I would love to do with your child after reading what the requirements were and the needs. So you know that they want, specifically from that ad that I talked to you about, you knew that, or you know that they want you to do outdoor activities. So you might not have past work experience in this sector, but you know it's something you want to do. So maybe talk to them about what are some of the outdoor activities that you love doing and what you would like doing with them. Because I'll tell you, if somebody says, I'm into geocaching, my son's never geocached, but if somebody said, I'm into geocaching and I would love to take your son geocaching, I'm going, that's awesome. Because he's getting outside, he's going through the forest, he's gonna think that he's treasure hunting, and he's gonna learn the reasons what people do and the background of it. So I'll say to you, wow, how many times have you geocached? And you're like, and if somebody said to me, I do it like every summer, every day. I'm like, that's the person for my son. Or I like mountain biking. Or I like, I love just walking through the river valley. Great, right? So what are some of the things that you do in the river valley? So all of those things add up. So I've hired somebody who doesn't have any experience except for babysitting. But the reason why she stood out was because she loves snowboarding. She loves putting on her snow pants, and because we just had snow, so I can talk about it, but taking him tobogganing. I don't toboggan. But somebody that says, yeah, I want to do that, or I can take him to the basketball courts and teach him how to shoot hoops. Thank you. Thank you. Because that's what I need. So I would just say, talk about what you love. And if you see somebody that points out specific things that they're looking for, talk about how you can make those happen. I think it's really, really important, because I can get 100 people saying, yes, I would like to be a respite worker. But the only ones I'm going to pay attention to is somebody that took out exactly what I was looking for and said, this is how I can help. These are some of the things that I love doing. Even if it's just playing soccer, I hope you have like 2 hours, because that kid
It's never gonna stop.
is never going to stop. So those are some of the things that I'm learning, and those are some of the ways that I find people, and those are some of the things that I look for. And again, in 4 years, it might change. We might need something different, right? Due to his growth.
Right.
But right now, that's the best way I can sum it up for you.
Do you guys ever do kind of like what we're doing right now, a mentorship or like a work experience kind of job shadow, see if it is a good fit prior to actually hiring?
So prior COVID, we would bring somebody in the house a couple of times before actually working with my son. So it's paid training in a sense. We would pay you, but it wouldn't be like, it would just say, are we going to be a good fit?
Right.
You know, are you here's some of the things, and then we get to sit down and actually talk about it to say, do you think this is a good fit for you? Because that's important. Like, are you able to follow some of the things that we're doing? Is there something that you might not understand and do you need help with or whatever. Let's talk about this, because this is a long-term investment for us. And if it's not going to be something that you feel fits for you, well, we want to find something for you that fits for you, just like we want to find something for us that fits for us. So we typically, prior to COVID, yeah, we had that. Come in, let's go play at the park. You know, I work while they're playing, but I'm there. And we identify and see how you handle some of those stressful situations that might be overwhelming for my son. You know, and you see if my son is somebody that you want to work with, because that's important.
Yeah.
How would you deal with that now? You mentioned pre-COVID. I'm just curious how, if you had someone is interested in the respite, how would that process look like?
So it would probably be, I have my own Zoom account. So I actually, or, you know, we work on Google Meets or whatever, and we have these conversations about, hey, we have like an interview like this. Now that it's nicer out, we can go outside, right? So, and right now we're on a tough situation. We have a respite worker who can't work right now because there's finals. And so I'm having to just adapt right now until all of that is clear and we can go back to normal. But typically if somebody said, Katie, this is what I want to do. I want to help Mateo. I know you're looking. So we would find ways to have a conversation one-on-one to see how it is, to see if the hours of what I'm looking for works for them. And then now we can go outside. So.
Good question.
Yeah.
I have another question. I'm kind of curious how comfortable you would be in terms of hiring someone who even has a disability, who's able to drive, who's able to just kind of mentor at the same time. I'm just like.
So Yules, I actually did have somebody who had a disability, who
Okay.
my son's caregiver. They had the same disability. And it didn't bother me because I think that they had a better understanding of how my son, what he was going through. And some of the some of the things that I asked, I said, well, how do you deal with those situations? And he says, oh, I learned to breathe and stuff. And the only tough part was because of COVID, he was like a EA and we couldn't make the same hours work. And then he would be off because there would be a positive in the class. And, you know, we had that, but it was honestly preferred in my sector. And the reason why I say that is because you have a very clear understanding of what the triggers are. And it's not new. It's something that it's not alien to you. You get it. And so by getting it, you can teach him some of the tools that you had and ways that you work through those situations.
That's awesome. That's like music to my ears.
Is it?
Absolutely, because I actually never knew I would be in human services. I'm a career consultant now at Case, but I actually started out with community services, like for a day program, and how my interview went was that I was diagnosed with a learning disability, and I had an IQ of like 70.
Okay.
And so of course having to adapt that as an adult and having to kind of battle the negativity and try to excel even despite my teacher saying I won't be able to go to university, I won't be able to do this and that. So I was like, wow, okay. But like you said, I'm able to advocate for those who have disability where they feel like they're kind of alienated. Having someone to work with them and say, hey, I understand. I was put into a special program. I had like special curriculums that was built just for me, and so like it's wonderful to hear this.
Yeah,
Right.
it wouldn't. How would if I brought somebody in who would they consider as neurotypical over somebody who could actually empathize with him and is keen on working with him and is excited and gets those barriers, why, it just doesn't, why would I do that, right? So you might have an IQ of, like 101, or you might, whichever, but you don't relate to my son. So why would I pick that over somebody who gets it, somebody who can give him tools and how they worked with it, and somebody who makes it normal for him. And I don't like the word normal, because none of us are, right?
Well
But-
said, well said.
Right, but it's like, you know what, at the end of the day, you have somebody who honestly can get down and say, I get it, buddy. And here's how we're gonna get through it together. And he goes, cool, you actually understand. Yeah, Amy?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. Although I would say that IQ has absolutely nothing to do with skill or ability. It's ridiculous that PDD makes that part of the onboarding process. But anyway, that's a different topic. I just had a question. I guess maybe I misunderstood the nature of the mental ability. I kind of thought it was going to be a bit more broad about like just the part of disability services that I'm interested in getting into is the employment side. And I don't know. I guess I misunderstood.
what did you misunderstand?
Yeah,
Sorry.
what are you looking for, Amy?
I guess I was looking for information on like how somebody with a disability that doesn't have schooling background, because I tried to go back to school and it's not for me. How they would get into the employment or the employment support realm of disability services.
Oh. Okay, so that's not this, but that is a really great, I think that would be an awesome session. So
I
we
think
can
that
definitely,
disability services, I thought it meant disability, like the broad general term.
Sorry, Amy, I can't deliver
Yeah.
on that. I can only deliver on home support.
Katie has all the knowledge. We just didn't tell her ahead of time. You also have to talk about employment.
Okay.
No, we can definitely talk more about that, Amy.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Definitely. Yeah, so.
I guess if I could add, Katie, you did mention a little bit about addressing passion. So you're looking for someone who's passionate. And Amy, just like a resume, employers are looking for a story in the resume, like a something that they can look at and see, wow, this guy's passionate. And I see that if I was an employer, I can see that maybe this guy's worth hiring after an interview. So I think it kind of ties in
Mhm.
Yeah,
in that sense.
I also
Yeah.
think that knowledge and life, what has happened in your life and everything that somebody has gone through also speaks volumes. So maybe you don't have the schooling that says I can do this, but doesn't mean you don't have the knowledge that says you do. Right? Like you have firsthand experience, which I think is even better than going to school to learn about the firsthand experience somebody could have.
exactly. Yeah.
Like Jules, I'll share it with you. I'm part Aboriginal. And
Okay.
so we don't see my child as having a developmental disability. We see my child as having a gift. And so when somebody comes to me, I want them to see the same gift that I see every single day. He drives me crazy someday. I'm not even gonna kid you guys. Like some days I'm like, oh.
I love it.
Gift. But you know what? When somebody's passionate and wants to stand out, because when you're applying for a job, even like everybody knows there's 100 other people applying for that job, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't matter what job it is, but what stands out is your passion. So when you and it should though, and if it doesn't, then maybe that's not the job for you, right? Like maybe if somebody doesn't look at that, and if you're a passionate person and you want to work in the human services sector, You have to have that passion. And if it doesn't stand out somehow, then you know what? Then maybe it's not something you want or they want. And I say that because when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to work with your son, and the first thing they ask me is, how much do I get paid an hour? I go, oh. But if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'd like to work with your son, I love doing this kind of stuff. And, you know, and he seems like a pretty cool kid, or I have a child or a niece or nephew, or I've done this before, and here's why I love doing it. Then I say, then I get to ask you, well, how much did you get paid before? Because I want to make sure I can pay you what you're worth, right? So that's just how I look at it. Maybe, I don't know if other parents look at it like that, but I think the majority of us do.
Awesome.
Great.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Well, thanks.
Yeah, this is